friends, and welcome to What's Up. This is the time every 2 weeks, and Greg Braden and I get together to just riff off of whatever is on our minds. This is unscripted, unplanned, and hopefully very interesting. And hi, Greg. Nice to see you again. Always.
John, my friend, it's good to see you. You're one of the very few, if not the only person that I can have these conversations with, and I get 2 weeks to think about it, and I look forward to following our quartet recordings with this conversation every 2 weeks. So I'm doing well, and I'm looking forward to where we go today.
Yeah, it's always kind of fun. I mean, we're in the middle of the biggest change, maybe in recorded history, recent history. What have you been
You,
thinking about?
John, we I'm going to follow on what we did 2 weeks ago. Um, because I think in our quartet conversations and just with my friends, we tend to talk about isolated specific events that are important and we do need to talk about. We're in a process. These aren't random events, they're not spontaneous. They are sequential, they are hierarchical, they're being driven. There is an expiration date of around the year 2030, which is why we're seeing, I think, an acceleration in the degree of chaos and in the number of places where we're seeing the uncertainty. If we met all of the climate goals that are
Yeah,
proposed by the United Nations, we would be in a place that's not good for life in general, not good for human life, that we haven't seen since the Pleistocene geologic era. We can't defend ourselves if we've expended all of our armaments. The breakdown of societies and of the social bonds is not good for us. And the replacement of our biology with technology, and now the new reports of what are, they lump it under geoengineering, but it's beyond geo because it is now bioengineering. Uh, the nano sensors that are probably inside of each of us that we have inhaled
yeah,
through the nanoscale dust and the particles on our foods all point to a scenario. It's not good for us. Who's it
yeah,
good for? And the archaeological history of our planet says that we're not the first ones here. Those who preceded us will return. And now, John, it's very interesting. There's another segment of this, a movement of biblical translators and biblical scholars who are now equating the stories that we have grown up with in the Bible with the indigenous stories of our relationship with life in the cosmos. So, in other words, the Bible is the story of our relationship with what we call aliens
yeah.
and the battles between the aliens and the heavens and the battles of the aliens for human life. Do you think about those things at all?
All the time. Uh, the, you know what it requires, what that presumes and would require is a some kind of a general attitudinal change, a value shift. And so I've always seen it, as you well know, in terms of this diverging two different tracks, and that there's this technocracy headed in one kind of direction, which is running at warp speed, in which I believe we only have a couple years at the most before that they just lock the
Yeah.
whole thing down, and they have your mind and they have your body and they have your location and they have your money and they have everything. I mean, quite literally.
Yeah.
And the option is to go start a new world, and that is appealing to me in a number of ways, not just a kind of an existential one of being able to escape the matrix, but it is the path of the evolutionary jump process of the species. That there's kind of a break off group that moves off and kind of gets it, if you will, and rises to the occasion and heads down a new direction. What I think we have to do is that we've got to co-opt and utilize the technology as best we can, same way we use. It's all fungible, like you say. I mean, and it's so
Yeah.
It's like cell phones that you can use them for, any of a number of kind of things. You could do the same thing with AI and with chat GPT and large language models and so on.
The technology that you're talking about, I when I was working in the industry with the technology, and again, this was during the Cold War, and we've come light years from what I was given access to in the Cold War. And even in that time, that technology developed so rapidly and was so advanced, the insiders knew that it wasn't ours. So I agree. We have the tech now. It's about repurposing what
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
have already have. I think when I think of us and our relationship to life beyond this world, depending on whose reports you're reading and whose texts, we're already living with life from other worlds. They are so similar to us because we are genetically linked that they walk among us. We probably know them publicly. We may know them in our own circles because there are so we're so
Yeah.
genetically close.
For all I know, you may be an alien.
And you may be as well. So well, I guess we'll know in about 4.5 years.
Yeah.
The secret will be out. So the idea that that it's something so foreign, I think, begins to disappear. When I travel and I'm with live audiences, where I'm really seeing that people having a hard time grappling with this is when it comes to religion. The idea that Jesus could be an advanced life form from a higher dimension that
Yeah.
has come to instill principles of love. That, for some reason, people have a hard time with that. And the idea that God could be an architect of advanced systems of AI, or the idea that angels could be what we have called ETs or aliens in the past. That's where people are really, really struggling. But the part that entices me, John, and I think about this a lot, if those beings are so advanced that they have been able to do all of these technological marvels for eons.
Hmm.
We've only been here 200,000 years, man. They're eons, and the fact that they are still engaged in war in the heavens
Yeah.
says to me that we have the ability, there's something about us that's willing to move beyond war to solve our problems. So while they may be more technologically advanced, we may be more heart-centered, more empathetic, more emotionally and more consciously advanced to be able to solve our problems without using a war. And that excites me, John.
Well,
If we could do something on this planet among us
yeah.
because of what we were given that exceeds the polarities of those advanced civilizations,
Right.
man, I think that's worth a lifetime to explore.
Well, that's fascinating, interesting. Of course, there are all these different sources who are saying that this is like the only planet of choice, that there's something unique about humans, about humanity, and how we've been engineered, if you will, and the capabilities for love and compassion and other such things that presumably, reportedly, don't exist other in other areas. Suggests there's something special. Now, I mean, you know, I don't, I don't know. It's really easy to kind of fall into this thing, thinking that you're really something special, and you really don't. You don't know anything. I mean, you have no idea who else is out there or how this whole thing works. But you have these indications that keep coming in that suggest that, and so it's one kind of possibility, one scenario here, and so there may be something that's really important, uniquely important about who we are and what we're supposed to be doing here, and to the point of this discussion, what we have to what's the next steps, and how do you get yourself uh, how, on that track for this kind of evolutionary jump. And
That's the question, John. How do you get yourself on that track? And what we do is we develop a new story, and not a story in the sense of a fairy tale, but a story in the sense of a narrative. And
yeah,
that narrative then begins to inform us of what our potential
yeah,
is. Now this is one of those places, one of those beautiful places where history and archaeology and biblical
yeah,
traditions, they all come together in a beautiful way. In our last 2 weeks ago, I described an archaeological discovery that the tomb of Gilgamesh, who was believed to be, it was taught as a fairy tale. And the fact that his tomb has been discovered, the Epic of Gilgamesh, Gilgamesh was a hybrid between the the people of the heavens and the people of the earth, and was part of seeding the populations that we are all descendants from. So we, according to those traditions, we were given genetic potentials of the gods,
hmm,
married married
sure,
with genetic potentials of our physical reality. And so when you talk about a specialness, I think there is a specialness that comes from that. And we're only beginning to understand what that means. And it's that specialness that may set the course for what this whole change means. So while it's important to talk about economies and war and all
yeah.
that, the big picture, I don't want to lose sight of that big picture,
Yeah,
John.
well, this is really important because uh, what this means is that you cannot that there's this, you talk about a narrative. Well, the narrative that's the extent that's existing right now is all designed to make you lose sight of the big picture.
Yeah. It all begins with the way we think of ourselves. And so this is, I acknowledge all of the events unfolding, and we're all participating. It's important to know them and position ourselves well, but not lose track that there's something so precious, and I'm going to use that word
Yeah,
intentionally. It's beyond special. It
yeah,
is rare and it is precious within us, our species, that warrants the magnitude of effort and expense that we have seen for the last few generations to distract us from that
mm,
specialness,
hmm,
to create the diversions that keep us spun up in the uncertainty of the world around us, and removes our focus from the world within us. Now, we have to be careful. I also know people who have gone to the extreme. It's all about the world within them. They sit and literally will meditate 4, 5, 6 hours a day. And then when I see them at my local co op, they're so spaced out from the meditation and they're so unplugged from the rest of the world that they're not really able to contribute um, in a meaningful way in their community. Now, are they contributing in consciousness? I believe that as they elevate themselves, that is reflected in the field. But I think there's a level of mastery where we're learning to engage in the potential while we are navigating the reality of what we're having here. We're looking at both those, and I think what I see the people in our live audiences, I think that might be the hardest thing is they say, well, am I doing this or am I doing this? And the answer is yes. Yes, you're doing both because the way that we navigate the challenges of this new world is what molds and informs the consciousness
yeah,
that we are emerging into. So they're not separate. And I
yeah,
think that's a different way for a lot of people to think.
and that's all a derivative of this new narrative that you and I have talked about. But we need to come up with a new story about who humanity is and where they're going and what is this about and what we can be and what's on our horizon and so on. And then, of course, we've got to utilize all the media and the entertainment and the other kind of things and
Yeah.
start to run those ideas into the system.
It's a pretty wild time, John. The UN would agree with what you just said. However, the way that they want to approach it, they want AI to
Yeah.
develop the new narrative. They
Right.
want AI to develop the new story that is all inclusive, and AI to develop the new religion that is all
And
inclusive.
it'll do it. It's right on
I
the edge
know,
of
I
being
know.
able to do that right now.
Yep. Be aware of.
Yeah.
I believe we need to do narrative. I prefer that we write it for ourselves
Yeah.
rather than have
I'm
AI
with
write
you.
it for us.
I mean,
Yeah.
you and I had to just sit down for a couple of days and we'll write the narrative.
Well, and John, I think it's important we have a good time doing it. You got to have
Yeah,
fun
right.
on this world. And I
Right.
think, and that's, I'm actually serious about that. When we accept the magnitude of power that we have through consciousness and the ability to verbalize thoughts and share those with another person. These are extraordinary abilities that we take for granted.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think it should be fun
Yeah.
to enjoy these gifts as we build a new world and step into what's possible for us.
For those of you who are our viewers, let me remind you that this comes to you from the Arlington Institute. Thank you very much.
Thank you all for clicking the link that brings us to you and for sharing a part of your day with us today. We appreciate that.
Thank,
Love you all.
thank you
Bye-bye.
so much. Take care.